principle, it's one of the scariest and mystical places in France. And it was a place where Arne was born. At times he mentioned something about parallel worlds, that he could summon friends from parallel worlds. It might have looked from the outside like Arne was sitting in a sandbox or somewhere on a dusty sandy road talking to someone. And it was not clear with whom he was talking, but in his vision he clearly felt these friends of his. He traveled a lot, and he spent an incredible amount of money on travel. He chose this particular city, but he chose it for certain reasons, because he was a member of some clans, secret clans, where he was often invited to do something, and it was based in those regions. But as Arne explained to me, everyone can do it. Everyone can reach a certain level. But further, there are strong cities. There are, for example, cities that are difficult to master. For example, working with time. This is what he explained to me. If you feel time as a river where you can change direction, you will begin to control time, and you will be able to send thoughts in one direction or another, accordingly to the future or the past, to yourself or to other people, respectively, like some kind of signals. This, in his understanding, was time travel.
Ernst, I cannot help but inquire. You mentioned that Arne discovered mystics, discovered practitioners who, in all probability, imparted knowledge to him. From this, I have two questions. First question, how did he do it? Yes. How exactly did he approach them? And the second question, who were his teachers? I remember you talking about a teacher from China, from Tibet, I think, and then most likely there was someone else. At least in general, here is what can be said on this topic.
He had 5 serious teachers, Chinese. Well, Tibet is China. That is, in principle, Tibetan and Chinese teachers are one and the same. One was a very strong teacher from India who initiated him into the secrets of the chakras, into the structure of the chakras. Not just, what is it, but why is it? Where did it come from? If a person understands the origins, he can work with them. 2 teachers were from America, and if I'm not mistaken, one was very strong from France. Well, these are all members of certain closed clans. Some are Masonic, some are Illuminati. But they very often even intersect with each other. They often exchange knowledge. By the way, if, for example, I say Illuminati, this does not mean that they are doing some terrible things there. They are simply included in these clans and do not necessarily show something there. And how did he contact them? Danila, you have now puzzled me. I don't know how he got to contact them. The point is that it is like 2 magnets with different polarities. They just reach out for each other. Is this how I got out on Arne? Absolutely random. In fact, I'm not really the kind of person who likes to talk to outsiders, to strangers, but I was just drawn to Arne. When I saw him, it just seemed to me that if I didn't come right now, I would lose a lot in this life. Perhaps he was also drawn to the right teachers. I mean, these events, to be in the right place at the right time, it's not accident. It is a pattern that is prescribed from above. And the question is, are we able to feel these signs? Are we walking along this road that leads us directly to this place at this time so that we meet the right person? This is already a gift. To be able to feel this voice from above which leads you, he knew how to feel it. So he was always where he needed to be.
It turns out, yes, since these are clans, well, in principle, I know what we are talking about, but this is more for those, for those who, for the listeners. If we discuss the clans that instructed Arne, for instance, levitation, then it transpires that presently there are likely a considerable number of individuals in the world who have the ability to levitate, which is extremely fascinating for the majority of people.
Well, I didn't count, but when I asked a similar question to Arne, he said it was. What year was it? Let's remember. It was somewhere around 2010. I asked if there were a lot of people. He said that there are about 1,000 such people. 1,000 people who really can do something, that they were something. And so if we count the population of the Earth in the year 2010, it's already about 7 billion, 1,000. This is extremely small. Do you know why? Because everything always went from teacher to student. There was no such mass prevalence. And right before Arne's death, we were sitting. I remember he was already lying down. He could not sit up and he felt very bad. He asked me what I would do after his death. I said, train people. He asked, how are you going to teach, like me? And I jokingly told him, like Bruce Lee. After all, Bruce Lee, in fact, brought Wing Chun to the masses. That is, before that, he studied in small closed schools. So there has always been a private training school, 2 to 3 students, and a master, 2 to 3 students to a master. But it was Bruce Lee who brought this to the masses. He created huge schools. Arne smiled. I remember that smile. He said, well, be Bruce Lee. Okay, let's change the subject. Anyway, that's kind of how it was.
So now Ernst. I'll ask something like that. And what can you ask now to make it beautiful?
Just a second. Ask about travels, where we traveled, what were the most interesting places I accompanied him to in general? Because I didn't accompany him to many places, actually. I've been on literally 5 or 6 trips with him. We went to Asia. Okay, you asked me, I'll tell you.
All right, Ernst, could you kindly inform me about the places you traveled to together with Arne? Here are the most interesting, most memorable, perhaps, trips, the most memorable meetings with some perhaps unusual people, unusual events.
I once accompanied Arne in France. I was in France with him. He and I were in his homeland. He wanted to see his house, but unfortunately there was no longer a house at this place. It was now some kind of farmland. He and I were in China once. But I did not dare to go to Tibet itself, because I was not so prepared to go. I took him to a certain place and said that I would meet him when he returned. Because the master he was going to is quite high in the mountains. And I didn't go because, firstly, there was a very strong energy. And secondly, it's already hard to breathe there. How did Arne stay at that altitude and breathe normally? In my opinion, he was there for about 7 to 8 days. We had a connection with him. There's basically a connection there, you don't know, they have a special connection. When a person is high in the mountains, there is no cell phone service there. There is some kind of satellite communication, which is very expensive. That's what I remember. He told me that everything is fine. And we will meet later. And once we were in Thailand with him, but in Thailand he went to certain monasteries. He was very fond of, Arne had a very interesting theory. Arne always believed that religion is a diamond that lies before their eyes and people just don't know how to approach it, but Arne was able to take this diamond and with the help of strong visualization, pull out the necessary energy and make a real diamond out of this uncut stone and use it. He knew how to draw energy from any religion and said that the more ancient the temple, the more he wants to visit it and take this energy. Arne has developed a system for storing energy in places of power. By going to some very powerful place, for example, he had learned to take energy from places of power for 6 months. He could gain energy and then use it for all kinds of CDs for a long time. I was always surprised. Where did you get so much energy, teacher? He said, we were with you there and there 2 months ago. I took energy from there. But didn't you? I could take energy for a couple of days, but to stock up for 6 months, that was already something. There are people who know how to do this. I liked that Arne never hid information. Yes, at first he was not sure that I would stay with him. And I was not offended by him for that. I paid him money for tuition. But what he gave me, it was worth more than any money I could ever give him in this world. Therefore, it seems to me that he took this, as some kind of insurance that I will not give up, but will go the end. After all, when a person is given everything very easily, they may not take advantage of the opportunity. He can just quit and say, next time I'll take it in reserve and won't do it. And somehow it forced me to go to the end and study what I wanted initially. Well, at least what I was given.
I would like to further elaborate on this topic, pause on it for a little while. Yes, you mentioned that Arne was kind of teaching you and the students as well. Was it some sort of place, some special type of training center? And how many individuals were there, if it is not a secret, at Arne's?
There was a lot of students. Arne had many students, some left, some came. There were 5 permanent students, strong ones. Well, or rather, we weren't with him all the time. For example, from the moment I left my native Ukraine, I lived in Switzerland for a long time and just visited him on visits. I studied something, gradually advanced in my studies. Sometimes I was with him for a month, sometimes longer. Fortunately, this is easy to do with a Swiss passport. I don't think I would have been able to make myself such visas with a Ukrainian passport or a Russian passport at that time. It would be extremely difficult. So I was not constantly with him. He had 5 students who were, strong, but they studied some things that were different from what I know, and so such people always came to him. I called them turnover. They came and went. They took some small things. Some did not master, some they did. He told me that when a person wants to master something, he has to be with the teacher for a long time. They say, only cats give birth quickly. Everything else takes a long time. And when a person comes for 2 days, tell me this, this, and that. Tell me this, this, this. Arne was not greedy. He shared all the information he had. And always understood that if a person did not need it, they would just forget it, discard it. And he always realized that the less you take, the more you learn. The more you take, the more you forget. Therefore, he never regretted anything in this regard.
So, there were people who came, took courses, but didn't master them, right?
There were a lot of such people. And by the way, he knew in advance who would not master it. He always pointed his finger at them when I was around. Something like so, he just came to show off that he can afford it. No, he won't. At first he always looked the energy of a person, saying, you won't succeed. Or for example, you go practice this and that, and after a year come. Well, what kind of normal person will train visualization for a year so that he or she succeeds? For example, a vision of some object, and only after a year will come to say, teacher, I'm ready. That is, the people he sent who really did not have faith, did not have the strength. They just left and forget the whole thing. It was like a filter for him. I also think this is correct. Yes, many took knowledge and many things did not work out. Some people even tried to arrange some kind of altercation with him. They say, you did not teach us on purpose. But he always had a couple of students in this case who could demonstrate something to someone who was indignant. In this regard, he also had no particular problems.
I understand, Ernst, but how did they find all these people? I guess there were really many of them. How did they eventually find Arne? So it turns out that in certain specific circles, he was actually a very well-known individual?
Yes, indeed, through certain clubs, through certain secret societies, they came to him. They knew about him. They knew that there are such people. Arne was not alone. There were still quite a few such teachers at that time. Probably even in America there were about 6 or 7 strong teachers. I don't mean those who just taught something, but those who have been trained, and those who were really strong. But we must understand that this is essentially the end of Arne's life. What happened before that? How they found him? Danila, honestly? I don't know. I met Arne 18 years before his death. Therefore here, unfortunately, I cannot tell you more. Most likely earlier, too, were found from secret societies. There was some rumor that there is a person who can do such things. He often showed them. He often taught somewhere something small. You know, I'll tell you this, Arne was basically a good marketer too, and he knew how to hook a person and show them just a little bit. When you show a person a lot, he burns out or something. When a person is shown a little, they cling. At a certain point, he could no longer work a lot in that organization because with age it was already difficult to do what was required of him, and he switched to educational activities. I never blamed him for this because such a talent must not be hidden. He even asked me a couple of times, asked if I thought it was wrong that he took people who would not learn anything. I said that this is correct. Because not everyone, for example, can read ancient Hebrew, but everyone wants to hold the Torah in their hands. Someone held it and it seemed to him that he had touched something holy. Although if you open the Torah, then not everyone knows which side there is even to read the letters. It's my opinion.
Ernst, tell me for instance, how did the training session go? I believe this will be of interest to both the listeners and those who are enrolled in your course. So you woke up in the morning, went to a building or perhaps a house, and then you encountered some students who were already there and witnessed how all of this unfolded on a technical level, gaining insights into the intricacies of the situation.
Arne had always a couple of level in learning. Fortunately, I got into the highest caste. We were loyal to him. He understood this, he read the energy, he saw what a person wants, read his thoughts, he knew that this man would never stick a knife in his back. He was afraid of betrayal, but he could always determine the thoughts of a person. We had the right to live in his house, meaning we had the right to live in his house. There was a huge clearing behind the house. In the morning, everyone wanted to sleep. I actually used to be more lazy, and I used to like to take long naps. The bell was ringing at 5 o'clock in the morning, a huge bell. Our windows were always open. Bell, wake up. We're waking up. 5 minutes to get up, but it was still very humane and human. 5 minutes. Somehow, with struggle, we got up. In the clearing, everyone sat in the lotus position, formed a circle, touched fingertips to each other, and began creating a circle of energy. We had it like that. You see, when a person does it online, it's completely different than like this. So the first assignment we had was to create a circle, to see absolutely all the participants, 5 to 6 people plus a teacher who levitates in the air. It is in meditation to see mentally. This is how we created our egregore. That's it. Half an hour, and it was all over. Well, then there were exercises. These exercises... You know, Arne was a pretty tough teacher. He could hit on the top of the head, on the back of the head if there was something wrong. Loving, of course, but nonetheless, if the person was really stupid, he could shout. Although he understood that there was potential. But the most important thing that happened, which I cannot do now in full measure, is the transfer of energy. If he saw that something was not working out, he sat down opposite the person in the lotus position. At first, he closed his eyes for 30 seconds. I had the feeling that he himself was hovering above the ground at that moment. Then he held out his hands. The students put their palms on his hands. He closed. And so you could just feel the fiery energy that passes from him to you. After that, the exercise turned out much better. But over time, I realized that not everything is so simple. And that the energy that he gave to us, he drew it from somewhere. It turns out he was wasting his life. He wasted his life energy on us. And perhaps if not for this, he could have lived another 10 years more.
Ernst, I may still have a few more inquiries similar to this, yes, closer to the conclusion of the finals. If we were to provide a brief description of Anna as an individual in that specific phase of life when you knew her, what sort of person was she ultimately? I comprehended that he was strict. Yes, he was Ernst, and in all likelihood the ultimate question.
Therefore, yes, he really had an incredibly strong core. Imagine taking a rod and wrapping it in rubber. It will seem to you that this is some kind of soft object, but it will be impossible to bend it. He was a man who was not bent by any problem, no trouble. He always remained so calm, so cold in his mind. And he always said, never make a decision with a hot head. A hot head is the worst. I remember there were moments when almost the earth left from under his feet, and he always remained a calm spirit. He was very level-headed. In life, he never screamed except for some moments of training. In training, he shouted to motivate us a little. But in life, and for some moments when some nerves attacked him, no, I don't remember that ever happening. In all the time I've been with him, I don't remember a single time. And there were such moments, for example, in travel when we were denied something. So I come back and I say, no, we don't seem to be sleeping in the hotel. They said to stay in the lobby, there are no rooms. He replied, well, in the lobby it means in the lobby. I'll curl up here and you'll guard me. You know, these are the kind of things that a normal person of his age would have started to, freak out about. But he was calm, so something. He always remembered that there is this world and there are other worlds, and this world is just one of the steps that we will have to go through and move on. And the most interesting fact is that although Arne knew the date of his death, he did nothing to somehow postpone it. I had the feeling that he knew both his previous lives and a couple of his next lives. Then that his passing away reminded me in some way of getting off the bus. The bus stopped, opened the doors, the man got out, waved his hand and went on to do his own thing. He didn't seem to die, he just disappeared, he just moved on to the next life. And that's it. This man who knew everything that happened to him and what will happen. I am very glad that I happened to live in the same era with him. I am glad that I received some knowledge from him. Yes, not everything. But what I received I have not even mastered. I haven't mastered everything yet. So I still have many more pieces of information that I will still have to master, process, and maybe even tell other people. And as I understand it, Arne didn't mind if I told others what I got from him.
Concluding such, yes, this particular story that I was told during that conversation we had earlier. And please let me know, do you still have any contact with Arne after he left, or have you completely lost touch with him?
Danila, if I say yes, probably many will just turn off YouTube now. They will think and consider me a fool, but I actually communicate with Arne. He taught me to communicate with the dead spirits through the astral plane. I ask him questions in my right mind, that is in wakefulness, and I get the answer during sleep. But during a special dream, while sleeping, I tune in to go to the astral plane. And in the astral plane, I really see this person. The most interesting thing is that when we see a deceased person, outwardly as a rule, either younger or remains at the level at which he passed away, and Arne is getting old. That is, I see that 4 years have passed and he is getting old. And things wear out. I remember when he was dying, he had a white shirt. And the last time I saw him in the astral, his shirt was almost gray. I also jokingly thought, are there really no washing machines? His life seems to go on. He did not stop, I clearly know that. And I know that what I get from him is not my fantasy, not my invention, it is actually communication with the person who continues to live. The only thing, Daniela, I'll probably open his cards a little now, but Arne said that he will appear in 200 years. But the time is relative, and he appeared already. Do you understand? After all, time is not the same. We are here, and for 200 years we are 200 years further in the chronicle of years, and there he has already appeared.
Has he already been born somewhere on this planet?
He was already born, but not in our century, but in the future. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, but if we take time for matter, then moving forward 200 years, it's already there. And communicating with him, I have the impression that I am communicating with a living person. So I imagine him like this. This is how I see him. But here is the feeling that he is already alive, alive in 200 years, and already lives in his other life. But again, we leave certain phantoms in the astral plane, and our every transition enhances this phantom. And while working, talking with Arne, I talk to his phantom, who talks to him in real life. That is, his phantom is aging. And Arne, his soul, has already passed into a new incarnation, but 200 years further. It's hard to explain. It is the very structure of time itself that is incredibly complex. And one day Arne spent a week explaining to me how time works and why we can send ourselves thoughts, where these thoughts stop, what a leap into the past is, what a leap into the future is. If you are interested, we can do a short seminar on this topic so that people have a rough idea of how the fourth dimension generally works. Because many do not quite understand how it works, and why there seems to be no man, but he was already born there, although that time has not yet come. This is a very deep topic that needs to be covered for a long time.
Understood, Ernst. And probably then, the very last and final questions from the category of Blitz, although this time Blitz will be very short. Were you the most outstanding student, surpassing all others in excellence, or were you not able to achieve that level of distinction?
No, at the extreme stage of his life, yes, but he had other students quite strong even before he met me. And they are very good masters now, and I even know two of them. One lives somewhere in Europe. The other one lives, as far as I know, in Canada, but they're very strong masters, and it's true, but they have a slightly different direction of siddhis. They have slightly different abilities. I will not say that I was the strongest. No, I will not lie. I think the ones before me were stronger.
What was the height of Arne?
Arne was about 5'11", but he was broad-shouldered and he seemed taller from a distance. He seemed like such a tall man. And when I approached him then, in principle, he was even slightly shorter than me.
I comprehended, and he had a variety of, once again, favorite movies, books, music, and everything that I inquired about on the Blitz game show hosted by you. Or he did not truly have any relationship to the world, to the culture that unfolds, such a mass culture of immense proportions and global significance that permeates every aspect of society.
He loves classical music. Vivaldi was his favorite music. Mozart, Beethoven. He didn't like the modern music. And when I sometimes heard something, headphones, he said, "Please stop it, it destroys the nervous system." He had one bad habit. He liked to smoke, but he was smoking a pipe. But he forbade his students to smoke because we had to accumulate energy and he had it innate. Although I had some innate things in others, we didn't have that much. In his youth, he sometimes smoked. I won't say in his old age, he didn't do it already in his old age, but in his youth, he sometimes smoked and sometimes he could afford a glass of wine. But then, accordingly, he understood that if he demonstrated it in public, then his students would think that they could too. So he stopped practicing, but he had this bad habit when it was very unbearable, he could light a pipe.
And probably inform me about the time of Arne's death. In which year did it happen? And overall, did you experience any emotions when he departed? Did it mark the beginning of a new period, a new stage in your life? Or was it some kind of natural continuation? Of course,
I absolutely did not feel the loss. I mean, I get the impression that his energy stayed with me. He left us in January 2017, but he knew this date, and when we offered him, we suggested that there was a huge amount of money needed there for a heart transplant. He said, "Guys, do you want to interfere with my plan?" I was willing to take out a huge loan in Switzerland, and other guys from these strong students were willing to take up to $500,000 each. So we basically talked like this: we can take about $2.5 to $3 million in loans and do this operation. And he looked at us like that and said, "Guys, what's the big deal? Are you crazy?" And that's it. After that, there were no more such conversations. We realized that he had it all planned in advance. He clearly knew when he would leave, because he had to leave on certain dates. He always said that if you leave on a certain date, your train goes much faster than if you leave on a slow date. That is, I don't know whether this information is for YouTube or not, but the soul after death can remain for a very long time in a certain dressing room until the next incarnation. And although we are now talking about the fact that he was already born there about 200 years later, but he could remain hanging for quite a long time. And so that this does not happen, so that the soul, shall we say, does not wither away. In timelessness, it must immediately go over. To do this, you need to leave on certain days when such an express reincarnation is taking place. He knew these dates, and that's why he said, "You guys are trying to interfere with my plan." That's the end of the conversation, and we realized that it is better not to interfere, that his plan is clearer, and he knows what he is doing, he knows what he's saying. And for us, it was no longer some kind of tragedy, it was not some kind of loss. Yes, it's hard, it's always hard, and sometimes tears welling up in my eyes. But we realized that it was all his pre-planned idea, and that it was an afterthought. And we accepted it with dignity.
Of course, I still have a lot of questions, but I understand that it is impossible to cover a person's entire life in a short interview, in a short meeting, especially such a multifaceted life of such a deep person. So I believe fundamentally that is essentially the conclusion for today. Today we will come to a halt. I genuinely express my gratitude to you for ultimately making the decision to share and transmit this small fragment of experience. This is an absolutely magical experience. Thank you for coming here and for answering my questions.
Danila, I thank you for your questions, for, let's say, opening the world's eyes a little, because I myself probably would not have come to the point of starting to tell people something like that. I mean, the interview, it goes kind of easier than if I just wrote on a piece of paper and started reading. It would have been difficult for me and I would probably stop. I hope that I remember everything correctly, that I answered absolutely exactly as I remembered, that I did not lie. And I hope that all the dates were also correct. But if someone knows something more, please write in the comments, but I think that none of those present on our YouTube channel knew the teacher like I did. Therefore, friends, if you are interested in Arne's life, watch, enjoy these videos, because there is really a lot of energy here. I am sure that if you visualize these moments that I am talking about, you will also feel this energy. Friends, thank you for being with us. We are very pleased. Subscribe to our channel, like it, click the bell. We will still have a lot of new and interesting and diverse things to do, so stay tuned.